4:17 a.m., Mountain View, California. 16 operators from the FBI's hostage rescue team moved through the pre-dawn dark in two-element files, converging on the rear loading bay of a single-story industrial unit at the far end of a business park loop on Middlefield Road. The building was unlit. The parking lot was empty. The Hawthorne Genomic Solutions sign above the main entrance hadn't been lit since late November 2025. The county property assessor's database showed the unit vacant for lease since the second week of December. The utility provider had flagged the address as inactive. Two thermal imaging passes in the preceding 3 hours revealed something different. 3 human heat signatures occupied the rear wing of that building. 2 were in a corridor area, mobile. 1 sat in a smaller interior room at the end of that corridor. Minimal movement for over 6 hours. That stationary signature was Dr. Marcus Reyes, 38 years old, Pentagon contracted biodefense scientist, missing for 12 days. Behind that loading bay door, one American held against his will. Biometric recording equipment configured for extended interrogation phase intelligence collection, 6 encrypted external hard drives, and the operational end of a foreign intelligence cell that had been running undetected in Silicon Valley's most unremarkable business park for 7 months. 3 shell companies, 1 China-linked recruitment front, 1 utility meter reading that nobody was supposed to see. This is how it ended. Marcus Reyes had no public profile. He held no faculty appointment. His name appeared in no academic citation index, no conference speaker list, no professional directory that a public search would uncover. He had a security clearance requiring annual polygraph review, an adjudication process that took 11 months when he first applied, and a joint service contract through the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency for work on what internal program documentation described as a next-generation genomic intelligence platform. The platform wasn't classified by name. Defense trade publications referenced it twice during 2025, describing it in general terms as a battlefield biological analytics capability, a system built around rapid analysis of individual genetic markers that could give military medical units predictive risk assessment for biological threat exposure in field conditions, and enable mass casualty identification significantly faster than conventional methods. 3 years in development, renewed in January 2026 for a 4th contract year. By every account available to federal investigators after his disappearance, Reyes was professionally careful. He used a work-issued device exclusively for program-related activity. He didn't discuss his contract work in unsecured settings. He commuted by Caltrain 4 days per week from his apartment in San Francisco's outer Sunset neighborhood to a contracted office in Palo Alto, leaving his Tesla at the San Jose Park and Ride each morning and collecting it each evening. The commute pattern was consistent across months. The route was consistent. The parking space was consistent. That routine mattered. On the evening of June 12, 2026, Reyes completed a late afternoon technical review at his Palo Alto office and departed at approximately 6:12 p.m. Security footage at the San Jose Caltrain Park and Ride placed him pulling into the lot at 6:41 p.m. He exited the vehicle, walked toward the station entrance, and left the frame of the nearest exterior camera at 6:43 p.m. His Tesla was found at 9:14 p.m. by a station security attendant. Driver door ajar, engine running, his work bag on the passenger seat, his personal phone on the charging cable in the center console, his transit card in the cup holder. He was gone. The FBI Bay Area Field Office received notification at 10:47 p.m. on June 12th. By 6 a.m. on June 13th, the case had been jointly opened by FBI Counterintelligence and the Diplomatic Security Service, the State Department's investigative arm. A scientist carrying active cleared program knowledge of a defense genomics platform, disappearing in circumstances consistent with a surveillance-based controlled pickup. This was not a voluntary departure, and it was not random. Within 48 hours, more than 24 agents across both agencies were working the case. For 11 days, they found almost nothing. The investigation wasn't passive. 1,200 license plate reader hits from within a half-mile radius of the Caltrain park and ride in the 2-hour window around Reyes's disappearance were cross-referenced against law enforcement databases, motor vehicle records, federal warrant flags, prior stop data from CBP and State Highway Patrol. 42 hits generated secondary inquiries. None led to a viable subject with a connection to Reyes or any flagged foreign intelligence entity. Reyes's personal phone went dark before 9 p.m. on June 12th. Cellular carrier records showed its last tower ping at 8:47 p.m. from a tower servicing the Guadalupe River Trail, approximately 1.4 miles from the station. No subsequent connections. The device had been powered off, battery removed, or placed in a radio frequency shielded enclosure. His financial accounts showed no activity after June 12th. No card transactions, no wire transfers. His mortgage auto payment cleared on the 15th without manual account access. His work email and personal messaging accounts hadn't been accessed from any new device or location. Phone traffic from individuals in Reyes's known contact network was monitored under FISA authorization. 14 days of intercepts produced ordinary communication, routine calls, domestic logistics texts, ordinary professional correspondence. No signal pointing to a physical address. No communication suggesting his associates knew he'd been targeted. 3 known professional associates cooperated voluntarily in the first 72 hours. None had heard from Reyes since his disappearance. One mentioned that Reyes had seemed more aware in recent weeks, scanning rooms during meetings, using stairwells instead of elevators, once saying he preferred a different entrance to a conference facility. The associate said he hadn't thought much of it at the time. I read through the daily case summary logs that later became exhibits in the federal criminal complaint. The annotation in the Day 11 morning briefing reads, "Asset recovery probability declining with each 24-hour increment. 11 days in, with full FBI and DSS resources engaged, and the task force was doing the arithmetic no investigative team wants to do." That phrasing, in a government brief, is as close to an alarm as the clinical language allows. Whoever was holding Reyes understood security. Whatever tradecraft had been used to execute the June 12th pickup, the holding phase operational security was built on the knowledge that federal investigators would be looking. The security was clean. There was a moment documented in the investigation timeline and later incorporated into the criminal complaint record, where the Hawthorne Genomic Solutions facility was looked at directly and dismissed. 5 days before the utility monitoring alert surfaced in the FBI Fusion Cell feed, a commercial real estate agent canvassing vacant industrial properties in the Mountain View corridor drove past the Hawthorne unit on Middlefield Road and recorded it as an available listing. He photographed the front elevation from the parking lot. The building, dark, professionally maintained for a vacant commercial unit, appeared ordinary. He included it in his canvassing notes and moved on. He didn't go around to the rear loading bay. This isn't a critique of that agent. It's an illustration of how the Hawthorne operation was built. The front face was designed to be looked at and dismissed. The operational space occupied the rear wing entirely. Every physical sign of active occupation was behind walls not visible from the public approach. The only evidence of occupation the operation couldn't suppress was the electricity it consumed. On the morning of June 22, 2026, a Pacific Gas and Electric field supervisor named Glenn Tanner received an automated alert from the company's smart meter network. The Hawthorne Genomic Solutions account had been coded as inactive since December 2025. Its baseline draw was near zero. Its actual recorded draw, as of June 22nd, 4.2 kilowatts, continuous, for approximately 10 days. 4.2 kilowatts is roughly the sustained load of a 2-bedroom home running full appliances, climate control, server-grade lighting, a small cluster of computing and recording hardware, in a building officially coded as unoccupied, in a unit with no active lease, no reported subtenancy, and no pending utility service request on file. Tanner flagged it internally per protocol. His district supervisor, working through a queue of several dozen similar anomaly flags across the Bay Area grid, assessed it as probable unauthorized occupancy, informal sublease, held over tenant, commercial squatters. He notified the property management company. A property manager drove to Middlefield Road the following morning and checked the front office entrance. Lights off, windows dark, front lobby empty. He filed the building as clear and didn't check the rear wing. The alert sat in the anomaly queue for 19 more hours. At 7:12 p.m. on June 23rd, a duty analyst at the FBI Regional Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Threat Fusion Cell reviewed the Bay Area Utility Data Monitoring Feed, a protocol established under a 2023 cooperative agreement between Bay Area utility providers and federal law enforcement. The analyst ran the Hawthorne account number through a cross-reference index of addresses flagged in active federal investigations. The Hawthorne address returned a hit in a Diplomatic Security Service file from 14 months earlier, an inquiry into Bay Area commercial facilities with anomalous foreign national traffic patterns. Hawthorne had been flagged as one of several dozen addresses of interest, a node that surfaced in financial surveillance data linked to foreign business formation activity across Santa Clara and San Mateo counties. The analyst flagged it. She called DSS duty at 7:41 p.m. DSS duty called the Reyes Task Force supervisor at 7:59 p.m. By 8:30 p.m. on June 23rd, a warrant application was in draft and a forensic accounting team had begun pulling the Hawthorne LLC registration chain. The financial architecture behind Hawthorne Genomic Solutions took a joint FBI-DSS forensic accounting team approximately 40 hours to fully map. The company was incorporated in Delaware in February 2025 through a registered agent service in Wilmington. No publicly listed officers, no state-level beneficial ownership disclosure beyond what Delaware required. Its lease on the Middlefield Road property had been executed not by Hawthorne directly, but through a second entity, Crestview Meridian Holdings, a California LLC incorporated in October 2024, with a listed mailing address at a commercial mail forwarding service in Redwood City. Crestview Meridian Holdings listed a single operating member, Pacific Basin Technology Advisory Group, a Washington State LLC incorporated in November 2023. Pacific Basin's stated business purpose was technology sector consulting and talent advisory services. Its primary correspondence email was associated with a domain registered through a Hong Kong-based registrar. Its commercial website, 2 pages, generic language about cross-Pacific business development, no named personnel, no listed clients, had been constructed in a single session in January 2024 and not substantively updated since. Pacific Basin maintained 4 bank accounts across 3 financial institutions. Over the 18 months preceding the Hawthorne breach, those accounts received wire transfers totaling approximately $4.6 million from 9 overseas source entities. 7 incorporated in the British Virgin Islands, 1 registered through a Cayman Islands intermediary, and 1 registered with a Singapore-based nominee services firm. $4.6 million through 9 entities into a domestic technology advisory company with a 2-page website and a co-working space address in Sunnyvale, California. That capital flow pattern is a documented structure for obscuring state-sponsored operational funding. Multiple small offshore entities in low-transparency jurisdictions route capital through a legitimating domestic layer, creating what forensic accountants call a beneficial ownership maze. Each entity in the chain has legal standing in its jurisdiction, but tracing actual beneficial ownership requires working simultaneously through multiple international legal regimes with differing disclosure rules and timelines for responding to foreign law enforcement requests. In practice, the maze compresses available investigative time by months. DSS Special Agent Patricia Vance, lead on the Reyes investigation, and a 12-year counterintelligence specialist who had previously worked 3 economic espionage cases involving foreign state-adjacent actors, walked the task force through her structural read at the 6 a.m. briefing on June 24th. The Capitol structure was built 14 months before the Reyes operation, she told the task force, per notes later incorporated into the criminal complaint record. Pacific Basin was a receiving vehicle that existed dormant for over a year before Hawthorne was formed. Hawthorne was the terminal operational layer, the entity that absorbs any tracing effort and can be severed cleanly after the mission completes, while Pacific Basin and everything above it stays intact. That framing carried a specific implication the task force understood immediately. This wasn't a kidnapping operation built around Marcus Reyes. This was an established foreign intelligence collection infrastructure. Reyes was an activated target within it. If the infrastructure was built for multiple activations across a longer operational horizon, the 12-day clock on his captivity was running not toward a ransom negotiation, but toward the end of a collection session, the moment when the operatives had extracted what they came for, or concluded they weren't going to get it, and needed to decide what to do with the person in the rear room. What's striking about this case isn't the sophistication of the shell structure. That architecture appears in foreign economic espionage cases with increasing regularity. What's striking is the timeline. Pacific Basin was capitalized 14 months before Reyes was taken. The infrastructure was built, funded, and maintained in operational dormancy for over a year, before Hawthorne was formed, and before a target was activated. That's not the posture of an operation hunting one scientist. That's standing infrastructure waiting for an assignment. The thermal imaging authorization was treated as emergency priority. At 4:26 a.m. on June 25th, approximately 30 hours after the utility anomaly surfaced in the fusion cell, an FBI aviation asset conducted a low-altitude thermal pass over the Middlefield Road facility under judicial authorization that required an overnight emergency magistrate proceeding. The delay wasn't bureaucratic friction. It was the first link in an evidentiary chain that would need to survive federal suppression motions from defense counsel with resources. 3 thermal signatures in the rear wing, 2 in the corridor area, mobile, consistent with awake adults in a maintenance watch posture. 1 in a smaller interior room at the end of the rear corridor. Minimal movement, consistent with a restrained individual in a confined space. Marcus Reyes hadn't left that room. The operational planning accelerated. FBI's hostage rescue team, staged at Moffett Field since the utility anomaly surfaced, received location confirmation at 5:48 a.m. on June 25th. DSS counterintelligence finalized perimeter coverage assignments. A second thermal pass at 11 p.m. confirmed the signature positions unchanged. The breach was scheduled for 4:17 a.m. on June 26th. The 24-hour hold from thermal confirmation to entry wasn't the task force's preference. The OSS's office required a sealed criminal complaint, identifying named principals with documented probable cause, before the entry team went through that loading bay door. Evidence seized inside would need to survive federal suppression challenges from sophisticated defense representation. The complaint, filed and sealed with the court before the breach, established the clean evidentiary foundation. Identifying the named principals required one more data point that surfaced late on June 24th. A license plate reader hit from a Cupertino commercial parking garage on June 15th, 3 days after Reyes's disappearance, had been flagged in the initial Alper sweep, but hadn't then connected to a subject. After the Hawthorne entity was mapped and the Pacific Basin corporate network was documented, the Cupertino hit was rerun against an updated entity query. The vehicle, registered to a shell entity linked to the Crestview Meridian structure, matched a parking validation token issued at that garage to a named individual. A parking validation token. $4.6 million in offshore capital, 11 layers of corporate architecture, and 7 months of disciplined operational security. And it came apart from a utility bill and a parking garage receipt. The sealed criminal complaint, filed at 6:17 p.m. on June 25th, named 5 individuals. 3 PRC nationals operating on business visas obtained through technology conference and academic exchange channels, entry records showing no flags, no prior incidents, No patterns that standard consular screening would have flagged as unusual. Two naturalized U.S. citizens with documented ties to Pacific Basin's Sunnyvale co-working presence. All five charged with conspiracy to kidnap a federal contractor, conspiracy to commit economic espionage against the United States, and unauthorized access to and theft of government contract information. Here's the assessment that will generate disagreement. The scale of the Pacific Basin financial structure doesn't support a single target abduction as its primary purpose. $4.6 million through 9 offshore entities into a domestic commercial shell takes months to construct and represents substantial foreign institutional investment. The Reyes operation may have been one objective within a larger collection program, not the reason Pacific Basin existed, but a mission activated within ongoing infrastructure. The two PRC nationals who departed the country before the arrests aren't, under this reading, the operational ceiling of the Pacific Basin cell. They are one layer above the team that got arrested. The people who have to be physically present are the ones who get caught. 23 minutes before the scheduled breach, at 3:54 a.m. on June 26th, the operation produced its single near disruption. The thermal monitoring asset detected a vehicle approaching the east side of the Middlefield Road facility from the Mathilda Avenue corridor, an approach that wouldn't generate ordinary traffic at that hour. A dark-colored van, plate not readable at imaging altitude, entered the business park loop, slowed near the east exterior wall of the Hawthorne unit, and idled for 4 minutes and 11 seconds. The HRT commander escalated to the command post. If the van was a logistics vehicle arriving for an early extraction, moving Reyes out before daylight, or pulling the principals, the timeline would need to compress past the evidentiary conditions the sealed complaint had established. Moving before the complaint was formally in the court record reopened the suppression risks the 24-hour hold had been designed to prevent. The van departed at 3:59 a.m. without stopping. The thermal signatures inside the building didn't change. The commander held the timeline. The remaining 13 minutes ran in radio silence across all 6 operational elements. 4:17 a.m. The loading bay door went in. HRT moved through the rear wing in 2 simultaneous elements. 41 seconds from breach to control of the entire wing. First element neutralized the corridor within the first 20 seconds. Third individual at the workstation area controlled at second 23. Fourth individual located in the utility room adjacent to the main corridor, standing, compliant. At second 41, the second element reached the end of the rear corridor. The interior room door, sound-dampened construction, no exterior windows, locked from the outside, was opened. Marcus Reyes was inside, dehydrated, restrained, alive. The first thing he said to the entry agent, per the after-action notation in the HRT summary, was 2 words: how long? There is a line in the HRT after-action report that reads, in the clinical context of a breach document, like something from a different kind of text entirely. The entry agent notes, subject asked how long before rescue confirmation or name acknowledgement. 12 days in a sound-dampened rear office, and the first cognitive output was to establish the elapsed time parameter. Count the variable, quantify before anything else. That's how a scientist's mind operates under extreme stress, and it doesn't leave you. Reyes was transported to a medical facility within 40 minutes of the breach, treated for dehydration and the physical effects of prolonged restraint. He was discharged after 4 days with outpatient conditions. He is reported to be recovering. The evidence response team began the forensic phase simultaneously with his transport. 2 laptops, both encrypted, both air-gapped at the moment of seizure, with no indication of having connected to any external network during the operation period, were recovered from the workstation area. 6 external hard drives were found in a lockbox beneath the desk. 3 lockboxes contained currency, approximately $94,000 in banded cash. Positioned at 2 points in the rear corridor and at one location inside the room where Reyes had been held, biometric recording equipment, camera arrays with high frame rate capture capability, directional microphone arrays, signal processing hardware not available through standard commercial retail channels. The biometric system wasn't incidental to the operation. Federal forensic analysts, working under emergency court authorization, accessed the first of the 6 external drives approximately 31 hours after seizure, using a memory acquisition technique applied to one of the laptops while it remained powered. The contents included operational communications in Mandarin with parallel English translations, financial transfer records matching the Pacific Basin structure already documented, and complete technical specifications for the recording system. Those specifications revealed the system's operational design, real-time physiological assessment during extended questioning sessions, vocal stress pattern analysis with baseline comparison, micro-expression capture at high frame rates under controlled low-light conditions. Pupillary response tracking correlated against a session-opening baseline recording. The system wasn't configured to record what a subject said. It was configured to assess, moment by moment, whether what a subject said was everything he knew. They weren't simply extracting Marcus Reyes's knowledge of the genomic platform. They were attempting to determine, in real time, whether there was something more, a secondary system, a classified collaboration, a technical component that hadn't appeared in the defense press references they'd used to target him. The horror of what that equipment implies lives entirely in what's left unsaid about what a 12-day session with it would have looked like. Here's the piece that doesn't resolve cleanly on the surface. The biometric recording equipment changes the scale of this operation in a way that points outward. A data extraction kidnapping, access credentials, briefing summaries, technical passwords, doesn't require vocal stress analysis and pupillary tracking. That level of physiological assessment is built for extended iterative interrogation, for situations where you believe the subject is withholding and you need to determine what you're not getting. Either the operatives expected Reyes would resist providing complete disclosure, or they believed he held something beyond what the public defense record showed. The equipment implies the 12 days weren't enough time to finish what they started. Neither possibility closes the case. Both point past the 5 people now in federal custody. Federal officials have declined to confirm whether material from Reyes's genomic platform appears among the recovered drive contents. What they have confirmed: the drives contain technical documentation, operational planning records, and intelligence assessment materials authored in Mandarin and translated into English. The scope of what was extracted from Reyes during the 12 days of captivity and what the biometric recording system captured is a matter of classified record. What this case reflects about the current foreign intelligence environment is something the national security community has been reluctant to state plainly. The infrastructure for state-adjacent foreign collection operations looks indistinguishable from legitimate commercial activity at the surface level. Pacific Basin's financial structure was consistent, in isolation, with hundreds of legitimate foreign direct investment vehicles operating in the Bay Area. The Hawthorne lease was a normal commercial tenancy in a business park with dozens of similar tenants. The PRC nationals involved had clean entry records through standard visa channels. The operational posture resolved into visibility only from inside the evidentiary chain, working backward from a sealed court filing. Detection wasn't the product of sustained counterintelligence pressure against this specific cell. Detection was the product of 3 independent data points arriving in the right sequence on the right desks. The system catches what it finds by accident. 5 individuals were arrested in a 2-hour window following the breach. 2 were taken from the Hawthorne facility itself, in the immediate aftermath of the entry. A 3rd was arrested at a residential address in San Jose at 5:49 a.m. A 4th was detained at a commercial parking lot in Cupertino at 6:22 a.m., reportedly approaching a shuttle service with a stated destination of San Francisco International Airport. The 5th was arrested at a residential address in Daly City at 7:14 a.m. 2 additional individuals named in the sealed criminal complaint, both PRC nationals identified through financial forensics and license plate reader data, are believed to have departed the United States before the operational timeline closed. Their departure routes are under active investigation. Both are subject to international arrest warrants. Neither has been located as of the date of this report. 3 have entered not guilty pleas in federal court. 2 remain in pretrial detention following a hearing in which the magistrate judge cited documented flight risk, foreign national status, and the international reach of the at-large co-defendants as determinative factors in denying release. Federal prosecutors have characterized the evidence as strong, citing forensic materials recovered from the Hawthorne facility and the financial records tracing the Pacific Basin structure. There is one detail from a secondary court exhibit in this case, a filing referencing the 5th external drive whose contents haven't been addressed in any public document, that we haven't been able to fully verify. The Hawthorne Genomic Solutions facility is sealed under federal order. The shell company structure, Hawthorne, Crestview Meridian, Pacific Basin, is in federal receivership. The biometric recording equipment and the 6 hard drives are in FBI custody. Marcus Reyes is recovering. The Genomic Intelligence Platform is, per a Department of Defense spokesperson, continuing on schedule with an adjusted team. Federal Forensic Accounting has traced 6 of the 9 offshore source entities feeding the Pacific Basin accounts to identifiable corporate structures. 3 remain unresolved. No beneficial owner identified. No arrest warrant outstanding because there isn't yet a legal name to attach to one. 3 funding sources for a foreign intelligence collection operation conducted on American soil. 3 open threads in a case that will otherwise be characterized as a successful rescue and a successful arrest operation. The PG&E smart meter at the Hawthorne facility has been removed and entered into evidence. The 4.2 kilowatt continuous draw, 10 days in an empty building, in a region full of empty buildings, is now a federal exhibit. What the meter couldn't record was whether the 12 days accomplished what they were designed to accomplish. That answer may take years to become public. The question is already in the record. Subscribe. The cases that matter are rarely the ones that end cleanly.